I touched on this before. I just want to give you a few verses from John chapter 11. God is going to re-establish the Levitical priesthood. And the story of Lazarus is related to that. Lazarus in Hebrew is Eliezer. There's no Greek word Lazarus. It was just the Greek form of the word Eliezer. They put an us at the end and dropped the E at the front. And then in verse 54 we read, Jesus therefore walked no more openly among the Jews, but went thence unto a country near the wilderness, into a city called Ephraim, and there continued with his disciples. So he's just raised the Kohanim, Lazarus, so to speak, and he sent them to the Jews. And then he's gone, so he sent a servant to them to tell them who he is. And then he's gone private, he's gone personally to Ephraim in the wilderness of the people. So that's how I read it. So yes, I do believe it. This is talking about a literal man. I read that literally. But I'm saying wilderness, Ephraim, it's kind of ringing bells with me. And he's called Lazarus. He's not called John or Jack or Fred or Chuck. It's called Lazarus. So all those details are there for a reason. It's interesting that there's another story in Luke about Lazarus and the rich man. And the dogs are licking his wounds. So in a sense, when the kingdom's down and Israel's asleep, Lazarus is not doing so well. You know, he's down there with the dogs. But one thing about dogs, for all their messiness, they do have a heart. And it's nice to know who your friends are. And so John 11 is the record of a true event, the raising of Lazarus, but it is also a parable. Lazarus represents the Levitical priesthood led by Eliezer. The city called Ephraim represents Ephraim, who leads the lost tribes. The wilderness represents the wilderness of the people, where the house of Israel will be taken to before returning to the land of Israel, and they're taken under the rod, and the Lord reveals himself to them. Ezekiel 20:35, and I'll bring you into the wilderness of the people, and there I will plead with you face to face. The temple and priesthood are in operation both during the Messianic era before the tribulation and during the millennial reign of Yeshua. So there's going to be a temple restored to a restored Israel before the tribulation. Here's another thing. So we're just going through a few examples. We're almost there. After many days thou shalt be visited. In the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword and is gathered out of many people, against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste, but is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. We're coming back to the mountains of Israel. They're laid waste. The Jews are in there kind of holding them a little bit. But there ain't enough people there to fill. They got rid of the Arabs. They have a lot of empty houses. And those waste places are waste. They haven't been built up. So, this is awaiting our regathering. Then the Gog-Magog invasion happens afterwards. And then the final one of the big outpourings of the Holy Spirit occurs when we're in the land and Gog's been destroyed. Because we read about that in a few verses later. So there's the mountains of Israel, Judah and the Shomron. Gog invades when Israel is already safely back in the mountains. And this is the area called the West Bank right now. Okay. Now we come a little bit... Gog's just been destroyed. It's come to the mountains of Israel, got knocked off, burnt up, is turned into blood and bone. So that'll help the flowers grow. So that's one thing the wicked are good for, digging them into the garden. That sounds terrible, but I tell you what, it'll do wonders for the fertility of the land. That's one good thing. So Ezekiel 39:29, neither will I hide my face any more from them, for I have poured out my Spirit upon the house of Israel. So there's going to be an outpouring of God's Spirit when we're back in the land after God. So that has got to be related to what Joel talks about. So I don't believe that those blood moons that we've got now is the final outpouring, but it may be some of it. And maybe enough for us to get out of here and get to there. In Joel 2:28 we read, and it shall come to pass afterwards that I will pour out my Spirit upon all flesh. So I'm tying these two outpourings together, at least somehow. And with that, the blood moons that we read in verse 30. just further down there. And the young men will dream dreams. The old men will dream dreams, and the young men will see visions. Why? Because God's wanting to tell people a whole lot of stuff in a real short space of time. Because the moon's turned into blood, the sun's turned into darkness, and there's palm trees of smoke. No, there's nuclear bombs going off, or something like that. The cities are being destroyed. That Sodom and Gomorrah generation is being destroyed, and the remnant is being woken up. The remnant of the young people. And God's saying, wake up, get out of Atlanta, get out of wherever it is. I don't know what he's saying, but I'm guessing he's talking to them. And he's waking them up. Because it's like the angels that came to get Lot out of Sodom. They shook him and pulled him out. They dragged him out. But now God's doing it with dreams and visions. Okay? Leave your mates. Because if you wait in that city one hour longer, you're going to be turned into dust. God's not going to forgive this generation. He's going to destroy it and bring a remnant out by blood and fire and palm trees of smoke. So, unfortunately, this will be difficult to read, but here's a timeline with things we already know. The Jews, World War I was an upheaval. It brought about the League of Nations, and also, by the way, the Australians played a part in pushing the Turks out so that the Jews could come into the land. And the Jews had partial control over Jerusalem. So that's something. So I suspect that some of those fellas on those horses were from Ephraim. And they were fighting. There's a spiritual thing going on. So we'll know who the good guys are when the bullets are flying. World War II, another upheaval, and we have the United Nations and the Jewish state, still secular, but the Jews are coming into the land in a greater number. Can we see a little pattern going on here? Babylon's coming together. Can you see League of Nations, United Nations? The world's coming together. But so is Israel to some degree, or Judah. And then the 6-day war occurs, and that's a really good year for babies, by the way. That's when I was born. So now we're awaiting World War III. Now I put 2017, not because I'm saying that's the date, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if it comes that soon. And that these blood moons are announcing trouble. And 2017 is 50 years after 1967, which is 50 years after 1917, when they got, and all of those things are perhaps related to Jerusalem. 1917, Allenby walked into Jerusalem, and the Turks were out. But they only got half of Jerusalem. The Jordanians were on the other side. 50 years later, they got the other half of Jerusalem. And Jordan was out. And Israel took possession of and annexed East Jerusalem. But they still don't quite have full control. Maybe in 2017 they'll fight for Jerusalem and gain greater control. I hope to God that's the case. If that's the case, the government of America is turning on Israel, in the process of turning on Israel. So there's going to come a time when that is going to cause God's curse to come upon this land in a way we've never seen before. And the Russians are sharpening their knives under the table, and everyone that's got a grudge against America is waiting their time. And but God is a covenant keeper, and He's going to bring that which is best in America to the promised land. So God is a covenant keeper. And because He's a covenant keeper, He's going to destroy everything that is evil in His sight in Israel, and He's going to save that which is good. So God help us. There's another prophecy that I believe may be related. It says that in Obadiah that Edom sets his nest amongst the stars. I've been noticing what NASA's doing. We've been going around in circles with the space shuttle for years, going nowhere. But we're in the midst of a commercial space race where companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin are developing private reusable spaceships. Unlike the space shuttle that costs $500 million to refurbish, these things take off, come down, take off, and come down, and they don't need all of that work, so they're cheaper. So we're coming to a time when mankind's leaving the cradle of the earth, and people say, "Well, that can't happen, and God won't let it." Well, according to Obadiah, he says regarding Edom, "Though you set your nest amongst the stars, from thence I'll bring you down." Where's Edom? He's right here. And there's nothing wrong with going to space. I love it. I'd like to go on one of those rocket ships. The reason God says castigates Edom is not because he builds spaceships or gets to the stars. It's because of his attitude of pride and his attitude towards his brother, Jacob. So that's another thing that I'm watching. In any case, Babylon, last days, Babylon will come together. Michael Rood talks about Zechariah 5 and tells us it's a nuclear bomb. This woman is actually fire, and the woman in the basket it's all a picture of a nuclear weapon. The thing is, this nuclear weapon goes to the land of Shinar to build it a house. What it's talking about is this woman wickedness is that woman that's in the book of Revelation. It's the whore of Babylon, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. It's the last days mystery religion headquartered in the land of Shinar. We've got Babylon in the United States, but we've also got it in Australia, in the city of London. It's not just the United States, it's Babylon. So it talks about Babylon being like the Assyrians, like a tree that gets its roots into all the waters. So you're going to find Babylon here, but you're going to find it elsewhere. This commercial system, this whole thing that is against us, it's Babylon. And it's going to have its headquarters in the land of Shinar in the last days. That's the rebuilding of Babylon. And then there's going to be the destruction of Babylon in the book of Revelation. We haven't even got to the rebuilding yet. And so Zechariah 5 is about the rebuilding of Babylon. And related to the rebuilding of Babylon is the curse that goes into all the earth for everyone that swears falsely by the name of the Lord. Who does that? It's the Christians and the Jews. If we're not walking with the Lord but swearing falsely by His name, His curse is going to enter into our house and rot its timbers and destroy it. The house isn't just a building, it's our family line. It says, though the house of Israel be like the sand of the seashore, only a remnant shall be saved. So, in this timeline we have another event. Before the tribulation, we're going to be in the North Country. So here we are just before we get to the North Country. We're awaiting World War III. It's not the end of the story. We're going to make it. We're going to jump the fence and we're going to head off to over here as I see it. Don't be surprised if we're leaving America. But we're not quite ready to enter Israel itself. We've got some things to get together as a nation. Okay. Then God judges and brings us out through, and what I've called World War IV, the Gog-Magog invasion. He brings us out of the North Country because He's bringing destruction to the North Country. And He brings us out of there and brings us into the borders of Israel itself. And it's a big deal. And then God comes down and He says, I'm going to huff and puff and blow your house in. And the Lord says, you're not even coming down the chimney. I'm going to burn you up. So, yeah. And then we have this messianic kingdom of David, which I believe will have a descendant of David. We will appoint ourselves one head in the valley of Jezreel when House of Judah and House of Israel come together. And we enter into a period of blessing. The bride gets herself ready, falls asleep. Then we have the tribulation. So this stuff here is what most prophecy teachers concentrate on. But that little bit called the tribulation is a big part of history because although it's only 7 years, it's very concentrated. And it's the culmination of everything. No wonder the book of Revelation speaks so much about it. But there's other things that are in the Old Testament related to what God's doing right now, which is related to the re-establishment of David's fallen tabernacle and the regathering of Israel and Judah into the land before Gog, Magog, and before the events of the book of Revelation. At some stage in the future, God will restore, even raise up David himself over a regathered Israel, and he will reign as a prince under Yeshua, as a king under the King of Kings, over a reunited Israel and Judah through the millennial reign of Christ. That's as I see it.